Shabbat Shalom Israel. It's your brother Marcus G back with yet another truth for thought. First and foremost, I must give all praises, honor, and glory to the Most High. I must give all praises, honor, and glory to the Most High. Second of all, I'm reaching out to you, Israel, again, and let me share my screen. I'm reaching out to you again and asking of your charitability. As you see here on my screen, this is a drive to support our beloved sister, Queen Alicia, and I'll give a brief synopsis of it. Basically, our beloved sister is undergoing a major surgery. She will be under anesthesia for 5 to 6 hours. Now, I'm planning to go there to support both our beloved sister, Queen Alicia, and her king, King Michael. Now, with that said, I'm asking of Israel both charitability as well as prayer. Her actual date that this is scheduled for is for the 13th of December. However, I'm attempting to get there 2 to 3 days early, and I won't be leaving for 2 to 3 days out. That way I'm there to support both Queen Alicia and King Michael prior to the surgical procedure, during the surgical procedure, and after or post the surgical procedure. Again, I'll have the link to this in the description, but this is a GoFundMe started by me. And again, I ask for your charitability. There are some scriptures here, and I actually want to go and get those scriptures right now and share them with you, Israel. So if you would please turn with me in your 1611 King James Version of the Bible with the Apocrypha, and we're going to start at 2 Peter chapter 1, verse 7. 2 Peter chapter 1, verse 7. And it reads, "And to godliness, brotherly kindness, and to brotherly kindness, charity." Again, this is for our beloved sister, Israel. She's been dealing with this issue ever since February. I've been walking with her ever since around June or July. Be it the Most High will, I'll be there to support both Queen Alicia and King Michael. And let's go to the next verse. It's going to be in 1 Peter, actually. So we're going to 1 Peter, and we're going to go to chapter 5 and verse 14. And it reads, "Greet ye one another with a kiss of charity. Peace be with you all that are in Christ Jesus. Amen." And the last one that we're going to go to is 1 Corinthians. 1 Corinthians. And chapter 16, verse 14. And it reads, "Let all your things be done with charity." So again, as I said, I am extending a request to you all, Israel, for not only charitability, but prayers. if you're not in a position that you can be charitable, we do ask that you at least pray for our beloved Queen and King, our beloved brother and sister, Queen Alicia and King Michael. Now, with that said, we will go ahead and get into the title. The title being Nineveh, woe to the bloody city. Now, I want to ask a question. I want to pose this question. King Solomon Dre, if you're in here, you can't answer. There are a couple of other people y'all can't answer. I can kind of talk to y'all about this already before. That'll be cheating. But I want to ask this question. I'm going to ask it early because trust me, we're going to answer this question. What, or better yet, where is Nineveh? I want to repeat it. What, or better yet, where is Nineveh? Now, I will tell you, as far as in the Bible, Nineveh can be found in several places. But someone was commanded to go to Nineveh and prophesy against it. I want to ask another question. Who was that? And I'm gonna give you all about 10, 15 seconds to answer. Who was sent to Nineveh to prophesy against it? This is a very well-known account in the Bible, I will say. This is a very well-known account. So I'm gonna give y'all a little time to answer that. While y'all doing it, I'm gonna share my screen. And go ahead. So the answers have been submitted. Hopefully some of you all knew. If you didn't, that's fine. We're finna get it right now. So I want you to turn with me in your 1611 King James Version with the Apocrypha. And we're going to start it out by looking at that particular account. So I want you to go with me to Jonah, chapter 1. And we're going to get a couple of places in here for a couple of reasons. I'm not going to go over the whole account, but I want to get some key points about the account. For anyone that said, it was Jonah that was told by the Most High to go to prophesy against Nineveh, you were absolutely correct. So we're going to go to Jonah 1, and we're going to get verses 1 through 3. And they read, "Now the word of the Lord came unto Jonah, the son of Amittai, saying, Arise, go to Nineveh, that great city, and cry against it, for their wickedness is come up before me." All right. But Jonah rose up to flee unto Tarshish from the presence of the Lord, and went down to Joppa, and he found a ship going to Tarshish. So he paid the fare thereof and went down into it to go with them unto Tarshish from the presence of the Lord. So Most High comes before Jonah, gives him a direct commandment. Jonah decides, wasn't a wise decision. Jonah decides I'm going to run. I'm not finna do this. I'm finna run. All right. Now, I like to do this all the time when we're talking about people in the Bible, so we'll know who we're talking about. All right. So you saw up in verse 1 where it says that Jonah is the son of Amittai. I want to go to Jonah 1 and 9. All right. Now, this is after he's paid the fare to get on this boat to go to Tarshish. And there's a dialect that's going on between the people on the boat and Jonah. And this is one of his responses. So we'll know the biblical nationality of Jonah. Jonah 1 and 9. And he said unto them, I am an Hebrew, and I fear the Lord, the God of heaven, which have made the sea and the dry land. So he's proclaiming his biblical nationality here. He was a Hebrew, an Israelite. All right. Now let's drop down to verse 17, because Jonah, again, he called himself running. And since I'm not going to go over every verse in this account, I'm just going to summarize the account, but utilizing the verses. So he decides he's going to run. So the Most High said, I got a trick for that. I got something for it. So Jonah 1 and 17. Now the Lord had prepared a great fish to swallow up Jonah, and Jonah was in the belly of the fish 3 days and 3 nights. Now, what happened was the Most High made that ship ride rough. Jonah told the people on the ship, man, if it get too bad, y'all just throw me overboard. Well, it got bad. So they threw him overboard. The Most High had prepared this great fish to swallow up Jonah. And it did. So now Jonah's in the belly of this fish for 3 days, 3 nights. All for not just following one commandment. Go to Nineveh and basically prophesy against it. All right. So we're going to go from there over to Jonah chapter 2, and we're going to get verse 1. Then Jonah prayed unto the Lord his God, further proving this is an Israelite, out of the fish's belly. Let's drop down to verse 10. So the Most High, he's praying after the 3rd day and the 3rd night. He prays to the Most High, and the Most High hears him. So we drop down to verse 10, and we see that. And the Lord spake unto the fish, and it vomited out Jonah onto dry land. Okay? So he prayed to the Most High hears him, directs the fish, throw him up onto dry land. All right? So let's go over to Jonah chapter 3, and we're going to give verses 1 and 2. And the word of the Lord came unto Jonah the 2nd time, saying, Arise, go unto Nineveh, that great city, and preach unto it the preaching that I bid thee. So this is the 2nd time he's given the same direct commandment to go and prophesy against Nineveh. All right. So we're going to go from there, and we're going to go down to verse 10. And God saw their works, that they had turned away from their evil, and God repented of the evil that he had said that he would do unto them, and he did it not. Well, what happened was the whole reason for Jonah to go there was they was in wickedness. All right. The Most High sent Jonah to tell them what he was finna do to them if they don't stop the wickedness. Well, they stopped the wickedness. They actually got in sackcloth, prayed. They went all the way out like they're supposed, like they did, like our forefathers did in in the olden days. And so the Most High spared. Now, that's one place that I wanted to go to in regards to Nineveh. The second place, though, is a book in the Bible that I have found many people have not read. This book of the Bible only has 3 chapters. Within this book of the Bible, there is, in chapter 1, a promise of judgment to come to Nineveh. All right. In the second and third book, back in that day, it was a prophecy of what was to happen or what was to befall this great city, Nineveh. All right. So what I want to do now is I want to stop sharing my screen and share it with something else. I'm going to share my screen with something else. All right. So there might be some people that's probably questioning, well, what book is this? You know, what book is this? This is the book of Nahum. All right. And we're going to just look at a very small portion of this. The name Nahum, occurs nowhere else in the Old Testament. In the New Testament, it is found in Luke 3:25. It is not uncommon in the Mishnah, and it has been discovered in Phoenician inscriptions. It means consolidation or consolation or consoler, and is therefore, in a sense, symbolic of the message of the book. Listen to this, Israel, which is intended to comfort the oppressed and afflicted people of Judah. This, and I will tell you, the first chapter is definitely to comfort the oppressed and afflicted people of Israel. All right, because we're going to find out about Nineveh and what Nineveh was, and you'll understand why I worded it the people of Israel, although the word Judah is used in chapter 1. So with that, we're going to go to Nahum 1. So if you'll turn with me in your Bibles to Nahum chapter 1. Nahum chapter 1. We're going to start at verse 1. We're going to read all 3 chapters of this. They're all pretty short. And it starts off with the burden of Nineveh, the book of the vision of Nahum, the Elkoshite. All right. Now I want to stop right now. Again, just like I did with Jonah. I want you to understand. Here you see the vision of Nahum, the Elkoshite. This is simply saying where he resided. He resided in Elkosh. But this is an Israelite. This is a prophet. In his day, he was a prophet, as he received a vision of something that was prophesied to happen. Now, today, that prophecy has been fulfilled. I will tell you. All of Nahum has been fulfilled. However, back then, it was a prophecy to be fulfilled. Now, I explained it, this whole first chapter was to comfort the oppressed and afflicted people of Israel. So let's read it. Let's see. Nahum chapter 1, verse 2. God is jealous, and the Lord revengeth. The Lord revengeth and is furious. The Lord will take vengeance on his adversaries, and he reserveth wrath for his enemies. I want you to keep in mind the two words of adversaries and enemies. Keep those two words in mind. We're going to get precepts to that way later on in the lesson. But keep those two words in mind. Verse 2. The Lord is slow to anger and great in power, and will not at all acquit the wicked. The Lord hath his way in the whirlwind and in the storm, and the clouds are the dust of his feet. So these are some things that's being said about the Most High. Again, in direct conjunction to some enemies or adversaries. All right. He rebuketh the sea and maketh it dry, and drieth up all the rivers. Bashan languisheth, and Carmel, and the flower of Lebanon languisheth. The mountains quake at him, and the hills melt, and the earth is burned at his presence, yea, the world and all that dwell therein. Now again, I'm going to say these words were words of comfort. As Israel understood, we're not an adversary. Oh, this is about some of our oppressors, some of the people that are afflicting us. Let me carry on. Who can stand before his indignation? And who can abide in the fierceness of his anger? His fury is poured out like fire, and the rocks are thrown down by him. The Lord is good, a stronghold in the day of trouble, and he knoweth them that trust in him. So this is something that's being reiterated to Israel. But with an overrunning flood, he will make an utter end of the place thereof, and darkness shall pursue his enemies. Remember that word again, enemies. See it again. Verse 9. What do ye imagine against the Lord? He will make an utter end. Affliction shall not rise up the second time. Remember that. This place, Nineveh, is an enemy, I will tell you. This place, Nineveh, is afflicting Israel. Is afflicting Israel at this time. But there's a prophecy again in books 2 and 3 of the fall of Nineveh. Okay? So they're afflicting Israel, but the Most High is saying they will not afflict you a second time. For while they be folding together as thorns, and while they are drunken as drunkards, they shall be devoured as stubble, fully dry. There is one come out of thee that imagineth evil against the Lord, a wicked counselor. We're going to talk about that wicked counselor. Thus saith the Lord, though they be quiet and likewise many, yet thus shall they be cut down, and when he shall pass through. Though I have afflicted thee, I will afflict thee no more. So this is the Most High comforting Israel again. He's saying, though I have afflicted you by these people, I won't afflict you anymore by these people. For now will I break his yoke off thee, and will burst thy bonds in sunder. And the Lord hath given a commandment concerning thee, that no more of thy name be sown. Out of the house of thy gods will I cut off the graven image and the molten image. I make thy image, for thou art vile. So now the Most High is reflecting back on the inhabitants of Nineveh. Verse 15, behold the mountains, the feet of him that bringeth good tidings, that publisheth peace. O Judah, keep thy solemn peace, perform thy vows, for the wicked shall no more pass through thee. He is utterly cut off. Again, it's the Most High comforting his people. He's saying, though, and I hope that this didn't fly over anyone's heads, to basically keep the high holy days and feast days and perform thy vows, keep the law, statutes, and commandments, for the wicked shall no more pass through thee. He is utterly cut off. So he's consoling Israel, namely Judah, but Israel. And you'll understand why I say that the more we get into this, because a bunch of Israel were afflicted by this place and the people of this place. So with that, I want to go and share my screen. I'm going to stop sharing my screen again. And I'm going to share my screen with this, because there were some things that were said in there. And I want to get some historical data in regards to this. Now, the name of this, and the links to all of these things will be in the description, is Nineveh as Sin City. We're going to get a little background on Nineveh. We're not going to answer the question of what that city is or where it is, but we're going to get a little background to it. Okay. Nineveh is one of the most prominent foreign cities in the Hebrew Bible. So Israelites, it was a big city that Israelites definitely knew about. Its portrayal is a complex blend of historical reality, symbolic force, and legendary embellishment. The historical Nineveh was the capital of the Neo-Assyrian Empire. So part of the answer of one of the questions, which was, what is Nineveh? This is only part of it, is that it was the capital of Assyria. In the latest 7th century BCE, there was no love lost between the ancient Israelites and Nineveh. The city's king, Sennacherib, remember we talked about towards the end of chapter 1, this counselor. Here's that counselor. Laid siege to Jerusalem in 701 BCE. Who was occupying Jerusalem? And that's the southern kingdom. That's part of the southern kingdom. Who was occupying that? It's going to be Judah, Benjamin, and Levi. All right. The prophetic book of Nahum is an Israelite taught song over Nineveh's destruction by the Babylonians. Keep that in mind. because that's what chapter 2 and chapter 3 is about. The destruction of the Assyrian Empire by the Babylonian Empire in 612 BCE. For Nahum, Nineveh is a city of bloodshed. Remember that. The Assyrians' ruthless military tactics are also pictured in reliefs from the king's palace in Nineveh, now in the British Museum. All right, now I want to read from here. And keep all of this in mind. I promise you the Bible's going to prove all of this. These are just historical. Okay. So we're going to read from, if you read this again, the links will be in the description. This is, what is the book of Nahum about? If you read this small prophetic book, it might surprise you to find out that Nahum's mean comfort, because it's all about God's wrath on evil or wickedness. Remember back in chapter 1, it talks about the wickedness of this place. All right. The book of Nahum is a prophecy directed at the nation of Assyria. Again, Nineveh was the capital of Assyria. And Assyria had many capitals, but at that particular time period, because what happens as that empire expanded, they changed their capital. So at this particular time period, and Assyria is pretty much at its peak at this point in time, Nineveh is the capital. All right. The book of Nahum is a prophecy directed at the nation of Assyria. You'll often hear Assyria addressed as Nineveh because that was its capital city. Again, at this point in the Bible story, Israel has split into two kingdoms. That is true, because the Assyrian captivity definitely had the northern kingdom in it. That is true. And they was working their way to the southern kingdom. This is very true. The southern and northern kingdom. Nahum is a prophet from the southern kingdom, Judah. In Nahum's day, God's people find themselves under the thumb of Assyria. Again, the northern kingdom has already began to be afflicted and oppressed by Assyria, a wicked foreign power that was taking over the known world. God has given Assyria the chance to turn to him to avoid destructions 100 years earlier. That was back when he sent Jonah. That was 100 to 150 years prior when he sent Jonah to prophesy against it. They hurried up, straightened up, and flew right for a minute. But then 100, 150 years later, here they go again, back in wickedness, okay? Back afflicting the Most High's chosen people by sending them the prophet Jonah. But they did not ultimately forsake their wickedness. God wanted his people to overhear him boasting of his judgment against this rapidly wicked nation by letting Judah hear him call Assyria to account through this prophet. God reassures his people that he will deliver them from their enemies, and he reassures us that he will not let evil go unpunished. Listen to this. It's another part of the question. Nineveh is modern day Mosul, Iraq. And in 612 BC, Assyria fell to Babylon, and this prophecy was fulfilled. So now we want to go back to Nahum chapter 2. And we're going to start reading about this prophecy, which was fulfilled, which was when Babylon overthrew Assyria. Now, but prior to doing that, I do want to, let me share this. I'm hoping that you all can see this. What I'm showing right now, and I can't really tell if you all can see it or not, but I'm showing the Assyrian Empire. And it stretches all the way from Asher to Egypt in its prime. Okay. Now, I've done a truth for thought before when I talked about the different dominions and different empires. In fact, I had talked about it in Esau, Edom. Who are they? And I'll break that down again as far as the empires. So initially you had the Egyptians. They had dominion. Then you had the Persians and the Medes. Then you had Assyria. And you had Babylon. And you have Greece or Greek, and then Rome. And actually in between Greek and Rome is the Greco-Roman Empire. It was just them getting together then Rome. They just said Rome. But the Persians and the Medes were overthrown, were overthrown pretty much, for lack of better terms, by the Assyrian Empire. The Assyrian Empire was then overthrown by the Babylonian Empire. The Babylonian Empire then was overthrown by the Greek Empire, and the Greek Empire by the Roman Empire, which was the last up until present day of the major empires. All right. So now let's go to Nahum chapter 2. And we're going to initially get verses 1 through 7. Now, this is all in regards to Nineveh, okay? This is all in regards to Nineveh. And it reads, "He that dasheth in pieces come up before thy face. Keep the munition washed away, make thy loins strong, fortify thy power mightily. For the Lord hath turned away the excellence of Jacob as the excellency of Israel. For the empire hath emptied them out and marred their vine branches." It means they've been sacked. They've been captured. They are captive. They are being oppressed. And it's in regards to the Assyrian captivity and this city in particular, Nineveh. "The shield of his mighty men is made red. The valiant men are in scarlet. The chariot shall be with flaming torches in the day of his preparation, and the fir tree shall be terribly shaken. The chariots shall rage in the streets. They shall jostle one against the other in the broad ways. They shall seem like torches. They shall run like the lightnings." So you see now, it looks like it's some fighting that's been, and again, this was considered a prophecy back then, that's going on in the streets, to the point that it's chariots raging in the streets, jostling with one another. "He shall recount his worthies. They shall stumble in their walk. They shall make haste to the wall thereof, and the defense shall be prepared. The gate of the river shall be open, and the palace shall be dissolved. And Hazab shall be led away captive. She shall be brought up, and her maid shall lead her, as with the voice of doves, tabering upon her breast. I want to stop right there. I'm going to share my screen again because we're going to get a little background on Uzal. All right. Get a little background on Uzal. So let me share my screen here with this. Again, the link to this will be in the description. According to the general opinion of the Jews, that would be Israelites, Huzab was the queen of Nineveh at the time when Nahum delivered his prophecy in BC about 700. So that is who that particular verse is talking about, the queen of Nineveh. So as you saw, the queen of Nineveh basically would be captured, right? So this is showing where Nineveh is starting to get overthrown. But Nineveh is of old, like a pool of water, yet they shall flee away. Stand, stand, shall they cry, but none shall look back. This is referring to the Nineveh of old that we were reading about, that Jonah was supposed to, that he went to prophesy against, because they've returned to wickedness again. So this is just a reference to Nineveh is of old, like a pool of water. It's just like it used to be. Nineveh is not doing anything new. All right, they've reverted back to their wickedness. Take ye the spoil of silver, take the spoil of gold, for there is none end of the store and glory out of all the pleasant furniture. She is empty and void. Again, this is a prophecy back at that time of what was to happen to Nineveh. She is empty and void and waste, and the heart melted, and the knees smite together, and much pain is in all loins, and the faces of them all gathered blackness. Where is the dwelling of the lions and the feeding place of the young lions? Because this was a conquering, again, this was the capital city of Assyria. They was like lions, ravaging lions. They was going out, hey, getting everybody, and you're going to see, I'm going to go over some things that's going to prove this. They were like ravaging lions. You hear me? Ravaging lions. Let me keep going. Feeding of the young lions, where the lion, even the old lion, walked, and the lions wept, and none made them afraid. The lion did tear in pieces enough for his whelps, and strangle for his lionesses, and filled his holes with prey, and his dens with ravens. So they was going out conquering. This is, again, the capital city of the Assyrian kingdom. They just going out conquering, man, bringing everything back. All right. The lion did tear in pieces enough for his whelps, and strangle for his lionesses, and filled his holes and prey with his dens and ravens. Behold, this is the Most High speaking. Behold, I am against thee, saith the Lord of hosts, and I will burn her chariots in the smoke, and the sword shall devour thy young lions, and I will cut off thy prey from the earth, and the voice of thy messengers shall no more be heard. So this again, in that time, was prophecy of things to come to Nineveh. All right. So now, and again, you see here that the Most High is against it. It's basically what he sent Jonah to tell Nineveh way back in Jonah. I'm against you. And the most I was finna deal with Nineveh back then. But they call themselves going straighten up and fly right. So he spared them. So let's go now to Nahum 3. And we're going to start off with just reading verses 1 through 4. The very first verse, the first part of the first verse, you can see in the title of this truth and thought. Woe to the bloody city. It is all full of lies and robbery. The prey departed not. The Most High is recalling. I sent Jonah, and they lied to me. They said they was going to stop this wickedness. They still robbing, and them lions are still there. All right. Verse 2, the noise of a whip. So there is some slavery going on. And the noise of the rattling of wheels, and there's also because of their chariots, and of the prancing horses and of the jumping chariots. The horseman lifteth up both the bright sword and the glittering spear. These again was this kingdom, this empire was a conquering empire. They didn't have a problem. They wanted to smoke, for lack of better terms. And there is a multitude of slain and a great number of carcasses, and there is none end of their corpses. They stumble upon their corpse. They are stumbling upon the dead. All right, verse 4, because of the multitude of the whoredoms of the well-favored harlot. This is the Most High and how he's referring to Nineveh. The mistress of witchcrafts that selleth nations. Israel, this is in regards to your forefathers. See, that was slavery way back then. The northern kingdom had been taken by Assyria into captivity way back then, and they were working their way down to the southern kingdom. They're working their way down to Judah, working their way down to Benjamin and Levi. That selleth nations through her whoredoms and families through her witchcraft. Right there, I want to stop sharing my screen because I want to share on something else. So let me get that ready. All right. Share my screen. All right. So we're going to read about, again, you saw woe to the bloody city, right? All the slayings. There was a lot of blood on that place's hands. And we've yet to even talk about the biblical nationality of the majority of the people that resided there. But I'm going to. And the reason why is because for the last 4 to 5 weeks, I've been addressing biblical nationalities, whether it be Israel, all with the exception of last week's Truth for Thought, which was a medical insight for you. But every one of the Truth for Thoughts over the last 4 to 5 weeks has been about biblical nationalities, be it Israel, about Israel or Israelites, Esau or Edomites, Amalek or Amalekites. And now we have this biblical nationality. I'm going in on this particular biblical nationality a little later on. So, but you saw about it being a bloody city. This nation was brutal and bloody. In God's accusations against Nineveh, he lists all the worst kinds of sins, or basically wickedness, They couldn't sin. They couldn't transgress the law. They were not Israelites, which the law was given to Israel. We can imagine dark magic, violence, prostitution, and enslavement all enveloped in a culture of warfare. All the same things that the Bible actually said. The book of Nahum answers some of the most emotionally challenged questions we have. What does God feel, and what will God do about the unchecked evil in the world? So with that, I'm going to now go to this. Now, Nineveh was legendary for its cruelty. I have the link for this as well. And actually, you can get a copy of this. I can email you a copy of this if you contact me via Instagram and leave your email address. If you want to email a copy of this, I can email it to you. But Nineveh was legendary for its cruelty. Graphic accounts of their cruel treatment of captives. Again, they definitely had the northern kingdom. They working their way down to the southern kingdom. Have been found in Assyrian records. The Ninevites were well known for their savagery in plundering cities. When the Ninevites conquered a nation, they would torture and murder cold-bloodedly. They were known to burn boys and girls alive and torture adults, tearing the skin from their bodies and leaving them to die in the scorching sun. Rather than hide such depravity, they celebrated and proclaimed it. How wicked! This is so wicked. This is happening to Israelites back in that day in Nineveh. They even built monuments to their own cruelty. So very wicked, and celebrating it too. Sounds like the Nazis again. This is something of the world. The population of Nineveh was huge at this time, historically around 1 million, a bit more than San Francisco, all in this one city, this great city, this bloody city. Nineveh, the capital of mighty Assyria, was the superpower of her day. It required 3 days to circle metropolitan Nineveh. And the Ninevites lived large. They enjoyed the best chariots, the finest food, and most exotic entertainment. It had an extensive business and commercial system like none in the world at that time. In addition, Assyria had ruled the world for 200 years and was the strongest military power. So that proves that that was a bloody city. There was a lot of blood on the hands of the people of Nineveh, these Ninevites. All right. So from there, we're going to go back to the Bible. Let's go back to the Bible. And we're going to read verses 5 through 19. All right. And they read, again, the Most High speaking here. Behold, I am against thee, saith the Lord of hosts, and I will discover thy skirts upon thy face, and I will shew the nations thy wickedness. So he's saying he's going to show all the other biblical nations the nakedness of Nineveh and the Assyrian kingdom, and the kingdoms thy shame, and I will cast abominable filth upon thee, and make thee vile, and will set thee as a gazing stock. And it shall come to pass that all they that look upon thee shall flee from thee, and say, Nineveh is laid waste. Who will bemoan her? Whence shall I seek comforters for thee? Art thou better than Populus? No, that that was situate among the rivers that had the waters round about it, whose rampart was the sea, and her wall was from the sea. So it's just it's just saying the description of where Nineveh sat, but this the Most High speaking this. Ethiopia and Egypt were her strength, and it was infinite. Put and Lubim were thy helpers. Now, remember I said there was the Egyptian Empire, then the Persians and the Medes, then there was the Assyrian Empire, right? Yet was she carried away. She went into captivity. Her young children also were dashed in pieces at the top of all the streets. And they cast lots of her honorable men, and all her great men were bound in chains. This is talking about Israelites. Thou also shalt be drunken. Thou shalt be hid. Thou shalt seek strength because of thy enemy. All thy strongholds shall be like fig trees with the first ripe figs. If they be shaken, they shall even fall into the mouth of the eater. So Most High saying he finna bring some pain to the Nineveh. Behold, thy people in the midst of thee are women. The gates of thy land shall be set wide open unto thine enemies. The fire shall devour thy bars. So this is where the prophecy of Babylon is going to come and utterly overthrow Nineveh, the capital city, which is going to be the overthrowing of the Assyrian kingdom. Draw thee waters from the siege, fortify thy strongholds, go into clay and tread the mortar, make strong the brickling. There shall the fire devour thee, the sword shall cut thee off, it shall eat thee up like the cankerworm. Make thyself many as the cankerworm, make thyself many as the locust. Thou hast multiplied thy merchants above the stars of heavens. The cankerworm spoileth and flieth away. Thy crown are as the locust, and thy captains as the great grasshopper, which camp in the hedges in the cold day. But when the sun arises, they flee away, and their place is not known where they are. Thy shepherds slumber, O king of Assyria. Thy nobles shall dwell in the dust. Thy people is scattered upon the mountains, and no man gathereth them. So Babylon, the Babylonian empire, gonna come and slaughter them, and those that remain gonna be running into the mountain, and nobody's they're not gonna get back together again. It's not like Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. All the king's horses and all the king men came back and put Humpty together again. That's not going to happen for Nineveh. There is no healing of thy bruise. What Nineveh was doing to the Most High's chosen people, there is no healing for that bruise. Remember that, because when I talk about the biblical nationality of the majority of these people that were Ninevites, that were of the Assyrian kingdom, the Most High is saying he remembers there is no healing of thy bruise. Thy wound is grievous. All that hear the bruit of thee shall clap the hands over thee. For upon whom have not thy wickedness passed continually? All right, continually. He's not forgotten. He has not forgotten at all. So now let me stop sharing my screen. We're going to get a little more background. We're going to get a little more background on Nineveh. All right. So let me go here and share my screen to this. All right. Nineveh, the oldest and most populous city of the ancient Assyrian Empire, situated on the east bank of the Tigris River and encircled by the modern city of Mosul, Iraq. You've heard this a second time now. Nineveh was located at the intersection of important north, south, and east-west trade routes, and its proximity to a tributary of the Tigris, the Quasar River, added to the value of the fertile agricultural and pastoral lands in the district. So you see, this is the city, the modern city of Mosul, Iraq. Keep that in mind, Israel. Keep that in mind. Let's get a little more information about Nineveh. Nineveh was the capital of the ancient Neo-Assyrian Empire. It lay on the eastern bank of the Tigris River, across the river from the modern-day major city of Mosul, Iraq. First mentioned in the ancient texts around 1800 BC, Nineveh became an important trade and religious center. Remember that. And was Assyria's capital city for the 9th through the 17th century BC. It was destroyed when the Assyrian Empire collapsed around 612 BC. In the Bible, it was the site of Jonah's famous preaching after escaping the belly of a great fish. So here you're seeing history is proving the word to be true. Archaeological discoveries from Nineveh include several palaces and temples and impressive fortifications. Remember, we read in the Bible about they celebrated the things that they did. And we read in another article that they even built things to celebrate the wickedness that they did. Further proving that. Its place without rival, constructed by the Sennacherib, there's that counselor again, included 80 rooms and was 1,680 feet long by 810 feet wide. It featured colossal statues, massive bas reliefs depicting its own construction and scenes of Assyrian history, and the contemporary world's largest known library, whose clay tablet texts are a rich source of information about the culture of ancient Mesopotamia. All right. Now, from there, we're going to go to this one. Again, I'm just making sure, just proving this place. Nineveh was an ancient Assyrian city of Upper Mesopotamia, located in the modern city of Mosul in northern Iraq. This should be telling you some clues of who this biblical nationality that was the majority of these people of Nineveh were. All right. It is located in the eastern bank of the Tigris River and was the capital and largest city of Neo-Assyrian Empire, as well as the largest city in the world for several decades. We read about that, and it took 3 days to walk all the way around all of Nineveh. Today, it is a common name for the half of Mosul that lies in the eastern bank of the Tigris, and the country's Nineveh governorate takes its name from it. It was the largest city in the world for approximately 50 years until the year 612 BC, when a bitter period of civil war in Assyria. It was sacked by a coalition of its former subject peoples, including the Babylonians, the Medes, Persians, Scythians, and Sumerians. So It further proves that this place, when Nineveh was overthrown, when the Assyrian Empire was overthrown, the Babylonians were responsible. And this is the last thing we're going to look at again, just looking at Nineveh. Nineveh was the famous capital of ancient Assyria. That we know now for sure. Previously, cities like Ashur and Calah were ancient capitals of Assyria. Like I said, as the kingdom grew, they changed where the capital city was. But Nineveh became the most famous in the 7th century BC when King Sennacherib, there's that counselor again, 705 to 681 BC, made Nineveh his capital. The empire expanded and became prosperous. The Assyrian Empire became extremely great and powerful with Nineveh at its center, all the way until its final destructions by the Chaldeans and the Medes. Nineveh was located in a very desirable place east of the Tigris River in a very fertile plain. Today, the ancient ruins are located just opposite of present-day city of Mosul. Nineveh was also famous for its in the ancient world because it was a center for the worship of Ishtar, the fertility goddess. Now, remember, we read once before about it being I want to use the exact words that they said, a religious center, basically like a religious center. You should have also remembered when we was reading in the Bible, it was talking about these graven images and idols, basically, in Nahum 2, right? This is all the same place. Nineveh was also famous in the ancient world because it was a center for the worship of Ishtar, the fertility goddess. The size of Nineveh is revealed in the Bible in Jonah 3:3 and 4:11, a 3-day journey in brief with over 120,000 people. The classical writers describe Nineveh as being over 60 miles wide. The city of Nineveh is described in Genesis as having been founded by Nimrod, the hunter who built the Tower of Babel and led the world into a rebellion against God. So that's all that we're going to get from that. Now, I want to go and I want to, let me stop sharing my screen. I want to touch on a few key facts, few key things. One, again, remember I said, over the last 4 to 5 weeks, with the exception of last week's Truth for Thought, I've been doing Truth for Thoughts that are talking about biblical nationalities, all right? Still keep that in mind, all right? Also, you should have saw where Nineveh was the capital of Assyria, the capital city of Assyria back then, but that today it's Mosul, Iraq, okay? You should have remembered that there was a religious center type. It had a lot of blood on its hands, as it was the capital city of Assyria, which had already taken the northern kingdom into captivity. All right. We read about some of the things they did to the people they took into captivity. The Israelites that they took into captivity. All right. Israel, I want to ask you, could you fathom that this place was recently in ruins? And I mean literally. But it's being rebuilt. And now we're going to talk about Biblical Nationality by Ishmaelites. Remember that, though. Just like I told you, remember about enemies and adversaries. Way back from Nahum 1. It is being built by Ishmaelites that are Christians and Muslims. together. And I can't make this shit up. So Israel, I have a video for you. I want you to watch it. And we're going to see if there's any proof to this. And as soon as it's over, I will be reconvened.
يعني نفس الشيء احنا كنا اخوه كنا ماكو هذا مسيحي ومسلم ويزيدي كلنا يعني متعايشين سوا.
أكيد بفترة داعش إحنا افتقدنا إخواننا المسيحيين خلال 3 سنوات، بس هسه إحنا سعيدين إنه يشاركون معنا أعمار الموصل بشكل عام، وأكيد أنا أحس بسعادة إنه المسيحي والمسلم واليزيدي يشتغلون سوا لإعمار المدينة، هي مدينتنا بالنهاية.
They try to destroy everything. They try to destroy the history of the city. They try to change the history for themselves only, not for Muslims, not for Christian, not for anyone, just for themselves. We removed about 5,600 tons of rubble and about 20 IEDs. Some of them was put inside the walls of the mosque. We encourage people to work here. For example, Christian work here in the mosque and Muslims work in the churches. So this is the goal of this project.
You can see here some ropes. We heard that they have been hanging people from here. Mosul now is healing. Now it's going back to normal. Life is going back as it was before.
يا سيدنا البابا فرانسيس، فرحنا كثيرا عندما علمنا بأنك ستزور العراق، وفرحنا أكثر عندما علمنا بأنك ستزور مدينة الموصل تحديدا. هناك الأنقاض في مدينة الموصل، لكن هناك في هذه المدينة هناك الأمل وهناك الرجاء وهناك التعايش السلمي.
Welcome back, Israel. First and foremost, I want to say that which is written in Nahum 3:1. Woe to that bloody city. How much blood? And that was modern day. How much blood has stained that ground? Just over time, just think about that. How much blood in that bloody city? How much blood has stained the ground? Now, remember I told y'all to remember these words. Enemies and adversary. I told y'all that over the last 4 to 5 weeks, I've been doing lessons on biblical nationalities, be it the Israelites or some enemies or adversaries of Israelites, as they are the Most High's chosen people, special, peculiar people, all with the exception of last week's Truth for Thought, which was a medical insight for you. So now, if you would, I want you to turn with me, and this is the last of the scripture we're going to get before I go into the closing. Turn me again in your Bibles, and we're going to go to, and I promise you, this particular book and chapter of Psalms, man, is just so all-in-telling to me. But we're going to go to Psalms 83. Psalms 83. Now, my beloved brother, Mike Malice, just yesterday, did a lesson where he too called out a biblical nationality. He called out Esau. I did a lesson about Edom and Esau here lately. But he did one, and he definitely called out that particular biblical nationality. And he also read straight from the Bible about things that are to happen. All right. But let's go to Psalms 83. We're going to just get verses 1 through 8. Psalms 83:1, a song of Psalm of Asaph. Keep not thou silence, O God, hold not thy peace, and be not still, O God. For lo, thine enemy make a tumult, and they that hate thee, that's a trait that an enemy would have lifted up a head. They have taken crafty counsel against thy people, the Israelites. Again, Nahum 1 was to comfort. Actually, Nahum 1 through 3 was to comfort Israel. But Nahum 1 was a promise of judgment, and Nahum 2 and 3 was the prophecy back then of said judgment. All right. They have taken crafty counsel against thy people and consulted against thy hidden ones, again, the Israelites. They have said, come and let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. I want y'all to keep that in mind for next week. Next week, I'm going to do some real American history for you. We're going to learn about some things they didn't teach you in American history, but it's part of American history. I promise you. For they have consulted together with one consent. They are confederate against thee. Let's look at these biblical nationalities or places of biblical nationalities. Of course, I've touched on the very first, the tabernacles of Edom. Again, my beloved brother touched on the very first of these enemies, the tabernacles of Edom, just yesterday. I'll have the link to that lesson as well in the description. And the Ishmaelites. I just talked about the Ishmaelites. They are an enemy. But it gets better. And this is proof that Assyria had other biblical nationalities that were in there with them. All right. Of Moab and the Hagarenes, Gebal and Ammon and Amalek. I did a lesson about a lot of these nationalities over the last 5 weeks. I've been doing lessons on these same nationalities. The Philistines with the inhabitants of Tyre, Asher, the Ashurians, which were not just made up of only Ishmaelites. There were other biblical nationalities with them. All right. Also is joined with them, they have holpen the children of Lot, Salah. So we're going to kind of close this out. And there are a couple of things that I hope happen today for this truth for thought. First and foremost, if you had never done it before, I hope you read with me the entire book of Nahum. If you had read it before, I hope that now you have an understanding of what that book was actually about. Right? Again, all of this falls in line with the fact that I've been doing these biblical nationalities, which started out with the chosen people of the Most High. And I started talking about a bunch of their enemies. And beyond that, Israel, is important to understand that the Most High has said in the Bible before, every biblical nationality, for whatever role they played in the oppression, in the affliction, in any type of negative thing to his chosen people, first, he has not forgotten. And second, vengeance is his. And with that, Israel, I want to ask again for your prayers. And if you can be, don't do it today. Today is the Sabbath. By the time this airs, it's going to be towards the end of the Sabbath. If the Most High has you in a position where you can be charitable, I ask that you do please be charitable, as it will be, those funds will be utilized by me to, one, get there, take care of my lodging while I'm there, and to get back. But it is imperative that we support one another. We take the little things for granted until we're in that position. We take the smallest things for granted. Just the fact of someone being there. And I've said this to many people before. The walk in this truth, and this can be applied to anything. If you're righteous, but I always apply it to the walk of righteousness or the walk in the truth. When you're walking this path, as lonely as it may seem, understand you are never alone. Now, here in the Royal family, we don't just say things. We attempt to do them. The likelihood is we do it. I have told Queen Alicia before, as lonely as this walk seems for you, I want you to understand, Queen Alicia, you are not alone. King Michael, you are not alone. And I am making every effort I can to assure you of that. Now, at the very least, the Most High and Yahweh Shai are there with you. But I'm making every attempt to myself personally be there prior to the procedure, during the procedure, and after the procedure, so that our beloved sister and brother, Queen Alicia and King Michael, know they are not alone. With that, Israel, it's your brother Marcus G. I bid you Shabbat Shalom, although I know it's probably ending at about right now. And I bid you Shalom. Till next time, be it the Most High will. It's your brother Marcus G. And I'm out.